Okay, Abdul Senat, just to repeat, good to see you. And I am recording this meeting. I just want to have your consent for recording this meeting.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. So the reason for today's meeting is I want to discuss two things. In our previous conversation, I recommended to you to refine your objectives that it align with a theoretical framework, or your objectives linked to theory. And that you did, and there's some confusion that I still have on that. So I just want to work through your aim and your objectives. And see if we're going to put that in a research question format, which I also don't see. And then the second thing is, and I think let's start with that, is your data collection. So I understand at the moment you do have ethical clearance, yeah?
They never give me until now. The final clearance is not yet received.
I am confused. I was under the impression we submitted. Was there no feedback?
Yeah, no feedback at all. But they said, if it's not accepted, we will let you know in 24 hours. But they didn't let me know anything.
And when did we submit? That was months ago.
Beginning of January, I think.
Yeah. No.
I remember the deadline was by end of January. So we submit 10th of January, I think.
And you have checked, because we as supervisors would get feedback on this, or the students that are supervised with UNISA, the feedback never came directly to me. It usually goes to the candidate. You have checked in all your UNISA space and everywhere on the UNISA software. You have checked in all the UNISA emails. Are you sure there was no feedback from them?
Yes, doctor. But I thought by default it's accepted, because they said if it's rejected, we will let you know in 24 hours, the feedback, which means. So I'm hoping that it's accepted and just waiting for the people.
Yeah, but okay. I think the best is that we just urgently follow up on this, because that is the key of moving forward. Your ethical clearance being granted means the progression of fieldwork. Now, that brings me to my next question. After listening to the president's speech last night and the easing down of level 3 lockdown, you would be able to start collecting data, obviously with the necessary precautions, wearing the mask, sanitizing it, etc. Or how did you think to collect the data in this new circumstances?
Maybe I will try to adhere all the conditions that's set by the government or the regulations.
So will you be ready to start collecting data if we have a confirmation that your ethical clearance is granted?
Yes, doctor, I'm waiting for that.
Okay.
Just I'm waiting for.
So that will be the follow-up from my side after this conversation, because that is the big thing of your PhD. You need to collect data and move forward. So that is the corner of your PhD. Okay. So I'm sure there were emails going around from But as you said, you haven't received the confirmation, so I will follow up. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Doctor.
So next is just a clarification on the objectives. Okay, let me first share this. So what I gather from, can you see the document that I'm sharing?
Mm-hmm.
So what
See.
I gather is that you've got your research framework over here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's business startups, immigrants, push necessity factors, pull opportunity factors, immigrants and non-immigrants, competencies of personal background, personality traits. Then business growth barriers, environmental growth barriers, and individual entrepreneurial growth barriers. Now, I just want to highlight the following, and maybe you want to consider this. I have done for myself on the same topic that you are doing, numerous studies on barriers. And I'm almost done writing a book which I wanted to call Barriers to Youth Entrepreneurship. And then I engage with other scholars, which said to me, when I investigate barriers, I'm actually looking at a coin with a flip side. And when one looks just at barriers, you kind of leave out that there are enablers on the other side of the coin as well. So we are easy to identify barriers, and that I've done myself. But the opposite of barriers are enablers or opportunities. So I do not believe that there's only barriers. I believe there's opportunities as well. So I've actually changed the book that I'm working on from barriers to barriers and enablers. So now we sit with a research instrument that's already developed. And I've approached my instrument as follows. So let's say we have identified 25 factors which we classify as barriers. And we research these 25 factors. Then there will be a ranking from the top barrier to no barrier. Yes? Is it then okay to say that the factors rank highest are barriers and factors rank lowest? So from the lowest upwards, we might say can be enablers because they are not barriers. Does it make sense?
Yes.
So let's say there's 25 and we cut it at, okay, let's make it 26. We cut it at 13. So the top 30 are barriers. From the bottom up, the other 13 might be opportunities. Okay, so just something for you to think of. Now I'm looking at your study variables. So you've got startup and growth, growth, performance. And then we've got the following. Can you see a split screen at the moment from my side or not?
Yeah, I can see.
So there's one document on the one side and another document on the other side. Now, the first thing that I want to get at is I think different institutes use different wording. I see with UNISA, they use the terminology primary objective and secondary objectives. At other institutes, they use research aim objectives, and objectives are split into goals. And sometimes I see an institute where UNISA got primary objectives, other universities got aim, use an overarching goal. So these terminologies are, to me, a bit tricky. It seems it depends on the institute. So assuming in the case of this proposal that UNISA want the primary objectives is similar to the research aim. Now, in this thing, you see the section that I highlight. Can you see the section that I highlight?
Yes.
You will need to have one sentence that crisp and clear say your primary research objective. So you can have that, but we need the overarching research objective, primary objective. And the way how we identify it is your primary objective is usually the same as your title. So it can be something identifying or mapping business startup factors and its impact on the growth of Ethiopian migrant entrepreneurs in South Africa. And then you can put later a case of 2 provinces. So I'm going to repeat this. Your primary aim is usually, or your primary objective, your research aim, is the same as this, as your topic. And a possible way to put it crisp and clear and in one sentence is to say, to map business startup factors and its impact on the growth of Ethiopian immigrant entrepreneur businesses in South Africa, or KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng, however you want to word it. So this section should have the same line in it as your title. Now moving on, looking at your objectives. So I look at your first objective to determine the push and pull business startup factors of immigrant entrepreneurs are the main startup factors of immigrants in South Africa. Now, to determine push and pull business startup factors of immigrant entrepreneurs, grammatically the sentence it doesn't really make sense to me. So I think when it comes to refining these, your objectives, it will be really good to have an English first language speaker editor help you with your refining your objectives. I can recommend somebody just to sort the semantics out. But let me just look at the descriptors here. So determine push and pull business startup factors. So let me just highlight this. Push and pull business startup factors. So here we've got in your one table on the other side, here you've got your push and your pull factors. Now, in this table, you identify these factors separately. But going back to the document, here, you group them together. So it's creating a confusion. Now you continue with your goals to determine how block mobility theory influence immigrant entrepreneurs. So let's look there at block mobility theory. Now, on the other side, here, I do not see anything about block mobility. Oh, okay, there it is. Push, pull, block mobility. Let me go back. Where's this one? I'm still trying to figure out how to share all these screens. Okay. So how ethnic enclave theory, there we go, ethnic enclave, to determine how mixed embeddedness, determine how the middleman minority. This is good. So your first objective in the study variables, good. You link this to theory, and what we can see here, this will be the framework of your questionnaire. Now, your second objectives, to determine the human capital that contribute less on business startups of immigrant entrepreneurs are key determinants of growth. So, of firm growth. I would recommend on this side, include there business startup and firm growth. Because that is how you have it in the objectives. Okay, now let's continue. Your goal is to determine how low qualifications and competencies of immigrant entrepreneurs are affected the growth of immigrants' businesses in South Africa. Now I'm battling here. The first one there is human capital. To determine how low qualification and competencies of immigrant entrepreneurs affect the growth of immigrant businesses. Now, can you see that in the first objective, you had everything relating to one another? You had your startup, you had your push, you had your pull, you had it related to block mobility, ethnic encleavage, mixed embodiedness in middleman minority. Now we get to the second, and the first goal, I do not see its relation directly on your table or your theoretical table on the other side. I'm moving on to the next one, to determine how lack of experience of immigrant entrepreneurs is in the same industry affect the growth of immigrants' business in South Africa. Now, again, looking here, I see gender, age, qualification companies. So I think here, okay. So I see here then how low qualification and competencies are listed third. So you put human capital, gender and age. I would recommend just stick to the structure. So like with your first objective, if I didn't read further, here now your qualifications and come out. Then you've got your experience is there. Business plan is there. Cool.
Yeah.
Determine how low level of training affects. I've got training there. I would recommend take scaling words out, like low level, because at the moment you assume there's low level of training. Maybe there's people with high levels of training. So just put in the word, determine how training. You don't need to scale that. And the same with how non-utilization. Through your research, you will determine if it's utilized or not utilized. But by putting in there non-utilization, you immediately assume that it's not being utilized. It's the same as the point that I had on barriers. You assume that there's only barriers, but there might be enablers or opportunities as well. Okay, so let's hear utilization training to determine how the absence of strategic market knowledge. Same on this one, to determine how the absence of strategic market knowledge. I would say to determine how strategic market knowledge affects the growth. And your research will show if there's an absence or there's an existence of it. Including these words here are assumptions. Okay, moving on to the next one. Objective number 3, to determine entrepreneur qualities that have less effect on startup of IEB in SA have effect on the growth of business. I would recommend, because your objectives are so important, do not use abbreviations here, just write everything in full. So now I'm trying to figure out, to determine how entrepreneur qualities. Now, in your next section, you've got personal qualities. So the personal quality can be for a person which is an entrepreneur or a non-entrepreneur. So maybe reword it there to determine personal entrepreneurial qualities. Or personal entrepreneurial traits. However, there is a large body of knowledge on individual entrepreneurial orientation, individual entrepreneurial traits. They actually don't use the word personal, but call it individual. Okay, so there we got again startup and growth, individual entrepreneurial traits, efficacy. I need you to change the word efficacy to entrepreneurial self-efficacy, ESE. Efficacy or self-efficacy is a construct in psychology coming from Bandura and the 70s. If you are going to research efficacy or self-efficacy, you will go into the depths of psychology that you will be a clinical analyst. That's not where you want to go to. You want to stick into the field of management sciences and entrepreneurs. So it's really important that you use the word ESE there. And now we get to your goals in objective number 3. In objective 1 and 2, you have put everything so nicely in bullets, everything one by one. And here we get to objective 3, boof, everything together in once. So, so you will need to unclutter your goals. In objective 3, I'm highlighting it and write it in the same format as the previous. Okay, now moving on to objective 4. Oops. There's no objective statement. It just says external environment. So you will still need to go and write the objective statement there. So let's quickly get there. You got to evaluate the level of credit from sanctioned financial institutes. Now, look again on the way you word it here. Lack of. We don't know yet if there is a lack of. So you will just write it as financial access, sources of capitals. Maybe Ethiopians are all rich. They all access funding very easily. Maybe there's not a lack. As a researcher, you cannot assume before there's an abundance or there's a lack. That needs to emanate from the research. Even if you know from experience what the outcome might be. As a researcher, you cannot work on assumptions. What if Abdul Karim assumed Panado is curing the coronavirus without testing it? He assumed and then find out, oops, no, Panado is not curing the coronavirus. Okay.
Okay.
To verify how crime negatively affects, again, take out these descriptors just to determine how crime affects.
Okay.
Your research will show that it's negative. The one above, evaluate how serious competition. What is serious competition? Look at my face. Am I now a serious competitor? You know? So again,
we don't know.
Again, take out the word to evaluate how competition.
Okay.
Okay. So now we get to objective 5. This to me is extremely important because this is what differentiates a PhD from a master's. The thing that you are going to develop or create. However, there's a difference between a model and a framework. So to use these words interchangeably, to develop a model slash framework. Cannot go. So you will need to decide, are you going to develop a model? Are you going to develop a framework? Are you going to develop a model and a framework? Sometimes to create both, to create a model and to develop a framework. As you continue with your data analysis, we have your objective now of what your contribution to new knowledge can be. But the thing about research is we plan this like business strategy. We plan your research ahead. We plan we plan what we hope your contribution to new practice and theory is going to be. But when we start analyzing your data, and we look at your data, and we look at your models coming, your structural equation models coming out of your data, something else might pop up, something else that we did not even expect. And that is the beauty of research. When we start analyzing, hopefully new things will come up. So I want to tell you in advance, we are writing down objective 5, but there is a chance that objective 5 might change. I mean, you might come out after starting to develop your tool, that your tool is completely flawed and your tool is not reliable, and you need to refine and refine and refine your tool till your tool is a good and reliable tool. And developing a tool can also be a part of new knowledge. So that to bear in mind. So I just thought to work through your objectives. Now, what I want at the bottom is you need to create a section there. You will also need to put your objectives in question format. So let's say your first objective was this: to determine push and pull startup factors of immigrant entrepreneurs are the main startup factors for immigrants in South Africa. What are the main startup factors for okay. So let me just quickly and the same you do with your second objective. your third and your fourth and your fifth. So let's just look at
Okay.
the second one. Can you still see what I'm doing?
Yes, I can see.
Okay. So there we are with the research questions. So your second question is to determine the human capital that contributes less on business startup of immigrant entrepreneur. Again, that word less. Take it out. When you determine the contribution, your analysis will show you what is less and what is more. Objective number 3, we said was a bit fuzzy. Objective number 4, we said is a bit fuzzy. But let's say number 5. What frame and your next question, okay, just to put it very simple, because then when you get to your analysis chapter, it will be easy to say you're answering your research questions. Okay. And then if you look on this side, you basically now have the outline for your literature chapters. Yes?
Yeah.
Because your literature chapter your literature chapter, your objectives inform your literature, and your literature informs your research. Okay. That's basically what I thought I wanted to discuss. And to me, this is already 45 minutes of discussion. It was a bit too much to put it all in an email. So I was hoping this feedback made sense to you.
Yes, of course. Are you going to send for me the record, Doctor?
Yes, I've recorded this with your consent, and I'm going to send you the link to this video.
Perfect. Okay.
And then from my side, I will follow up on the ethical clearance.
Okay, Doctor. Thank you.
Now, are there any questions from you to me?
I just want to say you thank you. Thank you very much. I don't have a question, but also they send me the approval for the fund for the bursary. Can I send you?
Well done. I'm very proud of you.
Okay. I will send you the contract form, the one that I sent you last time.
Okay.
The new one. Okay. The other thing, I thought because of this current situation, I couldn't able to finish this project in this year, so I postponed it for the next year.
Yeah.
So the recommendation in the results part, I am postponed for the next year. This year, I will do the literature review and I will collect the data. And the remaining 2 chapters, maybe at the beginning of next year, we will complete. What do you think, Doctor?
I support you 100%, Most of my other students have done exactly the same. Most of my students actually requested for extension of funding.
Okay. Okay, so the data can be collected before the literature review. The literature review is by August, end of August, I will submit 2 chapters of literature review. So can we able to collect the data before the literature review, or I must finish the literature review? What do you think?
Well, you already developed your instruments, and your instruments have ethical clearance. So I see this as a parallel process, because as you collect data, what else are you going to do? Look at the beach in Durban? No, you're going to sit and write on your literature review on the same side. So I don't think it's either or. I see this happening at the same time.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you
Okay.
very much for all your help, Doctor.
All right. And so
I
good.
appreciate this. This thing has helped me a lot. You know, instead of discussing and just giving any feedback, this is the best way. Like we did it before when I come to Durban. You see, it will help me. So this is more productive, I think.
I'm
Yeah.
very happy for this. Okay. Take care. All the best to you and your family. Stay safe and healthy. And let's move your research forward.
Okay. Thank you, Doctor. Take care.
All right. Take care.
All right. Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.